Welcome to the Chronic Report. Whoa. Welcome to the Chronic Report. My name is Dr. Patrick Lynch, and I'm here with Nicole Selleck. How you doing today, Nicole?
Hi, Patrick. I'm doing great. How about you?
Doing awesome. And we have a wonderful guest with us today, a person who has, I, to me, she's a hero in my life.
Mm.
She helped me identify. I almost want to start crying here. It's just like
Yeah.
if Satya wasn't in my life, it was like I didn't have anybody else who came after Satya to help me identify what was going on with me. But
Mm.
Dr. Ambrose, Dr. Satya Ambrose, um, excuse me for being emotional here, but she is a naturopathic physician, and I had chronic illness for a long time, and I was riding the ridge of life and death for a year with 4 hospitalizations, almost losing my life during that year. January, I started taking her class on the causes of chronic illness and Lyme disease and chronic infections, co-infections, and so forth. Light bulbs were going off in my head every day about regarding the symptoms that I had. And finally, it was almost like a self-diagnosis. I was like, thanks to Dr. Ambrose. I was like, okay, I have chronic infections. Finally, after seeing 20 different doctors, after asking the GI specialists what the cause of my Crohn's disease was and all the other symptoms that I had had, doctors were telling me, I'm sorry, Patrick, but there is no known cause, and you're just going to have to be on
Oh.
immune suppressants for the rest of your life. And you'll probably have to have, procedures to help keep you stable as you live, and your life will never be the same, and you'll never be able to be as active as you were. And I didn't take that as an answer. I was just like, I thought to myself, I must have dollar signs on my head or something like that because I am not going through this rigmarole and I'm going to figure it out. And I spent a year trying to figure it out, seeing many different doctors and specialists. And finally, it was in class in my master's program with Oriental Medicine that Dr. Ambrose helped educate me what was wrong with me. And then from that point on, I was able to eradicate my chronic infections and get my life back. Dr. Ambrose is an acupuncturist and a naturopathic physician. She received her BA in psychology and biochemistry from Evergreen State College in 1975, her first acupuncture degree from the New England School of Acupuncture in 1976. She completed yoga teacher training in 1977 and integrated deep tissue course from Rolfian in 1977. Her second acupuncture degree from New England School of Acupuncture in 1978 and ND from the Natural College of Natural Medicine in 1989. She has been practicing for well over 30 years. She has a 24-acre farm where she lives with her husband and 3 children. She's a co-founder of the Oregon College of Oriental Medicine, where she currently teaches nutrition and biochemistry and pediatrics. She has taught many areas of medicine, including oncology, endocrinology, cardiology, pathology, acupuncture points and therapeutics, medical physiology, philosophy, excuse me, medical philosophy, immunology, emotional basis of illness, and women's health. I believe that Dr. Ambrose was also a founder of the National University of Natural Medicine, as well as I will repeat, she was a founder of the Oregon College of Oriental Medicine and a hero in my life. Um, Welcome, Dr. Ambrose.
Welcome.
What
I'm
else are
so
you working
thrilled.
on right
I'm
now?
odd. I didn't found the National College of Naturopathic Medicine,
Oh, okay.
but we did do OCOM, and that
Yeah.
was a big project.
Okay.
And
It
and
was,
I started a nonprofit called Shitari, which means meeting place,
yeah.
Hmm.
because as we all know, medicine is a really big field, and there's
Hmm.
so many different tentacles, pieces, Legos, whatever you want to put it.
Yeah.
And when they're separate, they don't build anything. And when they're together, we have a really amazing ability to figure out why somebody's sick and unwind it and allow people to heal, like you did. And sometimes all you need is diagnosis and Zoom and people are gone. But usually it's a lot more than that.
Yeah.
Usually it's a lot more work than we did, Patrick. You were ready to
I was ready to
go.
go.
You
Yeah.
were ready.
Oh yeah. I
You
was
didn't
ready.
have a choice.
No, I didn't have a choice. I love to live. I have a family, had a son.
Yeah, you had to do it. And that same thing happened to me because I camped in Connecticut and upstate New York and Massachusetts and I loved to hike. And
Yeah.
I never saw the tick, but I got Lyme disease and got rheumatoid arthritis
I
and
remember.
lost my vision. And eventually I figured out when I saw patients come in with similar symptoms, like, I wonder if I could have Lyme. Gee, I did camp out a lot.
Yeah.
And then I was positive. And the
Yeah.
test I did was an old test called the Qualitative Rapid Immunofluorescent Borrelia burgdorferi test. Did you ever hear of that?
I didn't hear of that.
Q-RIB?
No.
So that was the precursor to what they're using at Johns Hopkins now, which is
Oh,
the
okay.
dark field fluoroscopic fluorescent test,
Yes.
and to identify Lyme and its effect, how things are killing it, with the
Okay.
Johns Hopkins testing.
Okay.
And Joanne Whitaker did it. And I read an article by her and I said, oh, that's what I've got. I've got Lyme disease. I matched the symptoms. I mean, you could have any symptoms and have it be Lyme.
Oh,
But
for sure.
and I started doing it with all my patients with MS, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis were positive. And the
Yeah.
people with weird presentations, like chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia, they were usually positive.
Mhm.
And so I followed her treatment, which was cat's claw. She said the antibiotics didn't work, that this herb, cat's claw from South America, Uña de Gato, was the best. And
Right.
so gave that to everybody for a long time. You probably took that for a while, but it doesn't work anymore.
You know what? I didn't take it. I may have experimented with it.
Mhm.
But it wasn't one of those long haul things that I took, but I recognize that it is a popular thing to take. And
It's not as good as some of the other things
yeah,
now.
okay. Okay.
So back then that was my tool.
Nice.
And it worked for a while. And then Borrelia and its co-infections morph, so they change all the time.
Yeah. And so when
We
they
have to.
treatment has to change with it in order to be successful.
For me, I just felt like if you don't fall into some kind of mold, when you're dealing with allopathic, most people start that way first and go for treatment. And I just kept getting sent away, and the test always came back negative for me. And so I went many, many years before I came to my own conclusion that, hey, maybe I've got Lyme. And I know you're talking about the Chitari project. Um, you know, to me, I got real excited when I read about that. And I was thinking maybe this is going to be the dawn of a new era, because I think this is a problem that a lot of people go through. I think there's a lot of people walking around undiagnosed. Can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about, how you felt or what brought about this idea you have for this foundation?
Oh, it was from one of my patients who had arthritis, and he was from Nepal. And I told him about the nonprofit. I wanted to do this project. And he said, in Nepal, they have these places where everybody meets and they share their information. And it's called Shatari Center. And it's like the community center of the villages. And they get together and they share information about beekeeping or healing or growing stuff. And I was like, oh, that's a great name. And so he helped me put together the idea because I'm very eclectic. I like rheumatology and I like endocrinology and I like infectious disease and immunology and nutrient and biochemistry of everything. And so you can't just do one thing and heal. What we're applying to our bodies in complex chronic patients applies to the planet. Because, we're killing the planet, I think. And we need to do some dramatic things to change that, because we'll just get sicker and sicker.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can do that. But, I sure love working with an endocrinologist, because they have information that I need to help people with swallowing specialist, or top of the list is a sleep specialist.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And they need us for pain. They need acupuncture and oriental medicine. There's nothing as amazing as Jan Huswo, which is Cordalis, for
Yeah.
pain control. But there's, Boswellia, curcumin, and we have a lot of different options in acupuncture and bodywork, PRP, stem cells. There's all kinds of things we can choose from.
Right.
And part of our job is to figure out what'll work fastest, because people are suffering. Or Perna Plus, the green-lipped mussels are amazing for rebuilding tendons and hypermobility and joint space too. So that's, top of the list is sleep, and then pain, and then etc. The gut microbiome is next for me. So I always do that first before I start people on anything, because you gotta find out what bugs are in the mix. Besides, Lyme doesn't come by itself. It's like Dr. Horowitz, bless his heart, I love him and his work, and 5 to 8 infections per bite. So, and it's almost always Epstein-Barr, Mycoplasma, and chlamydia pneumonia in my patients. And then Bartonella and Babesia. They're the ugly stepsisters.
Yes, they are.
Babesia and Bart and Borrelia. If I was going to name them, that's what I wouldn't name them Esmeralda. But really?
So Satya, when you see somebody with either rheumatoid arthritis or, MS or, Parkinson's or any of these neurological diseases, and you find that they have Lyme disease, or when you have found that they have Lyme disease, and early on when you gave them cat's claw, or when you treat them now with utilizing different things, do you find that there are symptoms associated with Parkinson's or rheumatoid arthritis or other neurological presentations? Do you find that symptoms decrease and people can actually reach a state of remission from those autoimmune diseases?
My goal with patients is to have them be better than when we started, emotionally, spiritually, and physically.
Nice.
Because there's a lot of work to do, so they need to be in good shape.
Yeah, for sure.
Thus, here you are. So I have kind of a circle. It's not a linear process for me. And I start with nutrient analysis and gut microbiome. That takes a while to do. It takes a few weeks to get that analysis, and it's expensive.
Yeah.
So it's about $600 to $800 to do an analysis of the gut microbiome. And it doesn't always give us information, but if we miss something like Klebsiella, proteaceous, E. coli, we're not going to get anywhere, because nothing we give will be metabolized properly.
True that.
And so I do that. And then I work on sleep and pain, because I don't want to get rid of the pain with codeine or something, because that's terrible. Or even CBD. CBD is great for pain control, but we need to figure out why someone has the pain instead of like just treating the pain. And I'm not opposed to treating pain. It's like an awful thing for someone to live with. We have so many tools for that.
Right.
But, did they fall? And then they need to heal that. And so that means bodywork, chiropractic, massage, acupuncture, PRP, stem cells.
Right.
And last ditch would be surgery. And, is it an infection that's causing the inflammation? Then you got to figure out what cytokines are driving the infection. If it's Cox pathway, then you can use Perna, which is green-lipped mussels, and curcumin. If it's the LOX pathway, lipoxygenase, then boswellia works really well. And I like boswellia and curcumin together.
Okay.
And then there's a problem that we're all running into, is that a lot of the herbs and supplements we're taking are toxic.
Right.
So I joined a group that I love called the National Academy of Environmental Medicine, and they are evaluating labs for quality control and efficacy and supplements and herbs.
Good.
And we have 12 that are clean.
Yes.
And so vital nutrients is one. I have no affiliation with them. And like now is clean.
Now
They have really great.
I agree.
Yeah, which surprises.
Yes.
They have low dose, so you have to maybe take more, but they're less expensive. So people blow them off and say, "Oh, I'm going to take the expensive one." You know, sometimes there's like mercury or lead and things coming out of China. We have to be really careful with,
Right.
and because they don't have really clear laws on quality control. So.
And they do their own COAs.
They kind of do, and so I have a hard time with that because I love Chinese herbs.
Yeah.
The chemistry of the Chinese herbs is phenomenal for repairing the yin, you know, which is like the adaptogens, the cortisol family of things that we need, the steroidal aspect of our metabolism.
Yes.
And but you know, so what I'm doing right now is I'm doing chemical analysis research on the herbs and then finding companies that are doing quality control.
Awesome.
And so I'm excited about it, but it's hard to, not everybody tells the truth. So
True that.
So there's ethical questions.
Yes. There's
Challenges.
a company down in California who I use for that. And they've been great. You know, not only, you know, quality control and testing, but they'll test to make sure what you receive is exactly what it's supposed to be.
In California?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I knew they were doing that. I know one of the products that just came out with, which was the CalMag formula, tested in California to be over the top with lead. Okay. So now I have to change giving that to people because I like that, what they had in the product. So
yeah.
Sigh. Did I answer the question?
Yes, you did.
Okay, good.
You sure did. Yeah.
So shall I continue around my circle? Like first is the nutrients and microbiome of the gut, and you know, like throat. The microbiome includes the lungs and bladder. You know, the bladder is juxtaposed right next to the intestines, so any abnormal flora in there gets just translated fairly easily.
Yes.
And if you have hypermobility, that translation happens more easily. And so people get more bladder infections, and you need to do GAGs, glycosaminoglycans, to strengthen the walls of the separate parts of our interior.
Yes.
And then I usually I check lifestyle. If they're being beaten or something's going on at home where there's like a lot of stress and trauma, they don't get better. If they don't have a clean, safe home, there's mold or you know, a lot of conflict. That needs to change. They don't get better. Clean water, clean food. So I usually try and start them out with a diet. That's pretty overwhelming for some people.
It is, yeah.
But some people are already on it, you know, and it's just like fresh fruit, vegetables, organic. For sure. If you eat meat, grass-fed, free range. Yeah. Free range carrots. That's a joke. Anyway. The wilder the better, because you get more nutrients in the smaller, wilder foods like blueberries. Huckleberries are amazing. And then I look at the endocrine system, musculoskeletal alignment, which I'm not very good at. So I have other people that usually do assessments. I had one patient who had an alar ligament tear
Hmm.
And she was a horseback rider, so she went off the horse and hit the top of her head,
Mhm.
and she had tick bites.
Okay.
A lot of horseback riders get them and they don't see them,
Yeah.
it seems like.
Mhm.
And every time we treated the Lyme Borrelia, Borrelia, Bartonella, and Babesia,
Mhm.
she got so violently ill. She got migraines,
Oh,
and
wow.
she had hyperacusis. She couldn't stand any
Mm.
sound, and she had photophobia, where she would come in a hoodie with headphones with
Oh, okay.
glasses on,
Mhm.
sunglasses, like
Yeah.
complete sunglasses,
Yeah.
not just
Yeah.
like little ones.
Mhm.
And she could barely shuffle. And I couldn't treat her because she just has such intense Herxheimer reactions.
Yeah.
And and I thought, okay, I'm missing something. And I was like, okay, now what happened before you got sick? Oh, she had that head injury. Oh, she had a TBI. Oh my gosh. And so I sent her to an orthopedist and said, you really need to check it out carefully, because she was checked out and they missed that she tore the tendon that stabilizes the head, and the whole cerebral, in like the everything in the cranium
Yeah.
was destabilized.
Uh-huh.
And so they took her away from her parents. DHS did, because she was 14 and they thought she was faking it,
Oh,
because
Mhm.
nothing showed up in any labs.
Mhm.
right.
And so they sold their house to pay for lawyers to try and get her back.
God.
The whole
Wow.
family was completely like destituted, and they would bring her in kind of undercover to see me,
Yeah.
because they weren't allowed to see her.
Mhm.
And so she ended up going and getting stem cells in her alar ligaments in Colorado. And then I could treat her. And she's healed. And the test that I do to see if someone has Borrelia is the RED laboratory. Do you know that lab yet?
I don't know.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Anyway, this is an accurate Lyme test, because the Lyme tests are going to bless their heart. They're antibody tests, and antibodies come and go, and they're very unreliable.
Yes.
Mhm.
And the test sucks, basically.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it's only valid from week 11 to about 11 months.
Okay.
After that, the antibodies stop. So if you get a positive antibody test, you're very, very lucky.
Yeah.
And so Dr. Martha Clokey is a virologist
Hmm.
from London. She's really an amazing soul.
Hmm.
And she thought, okay, I'm going to find a virus that kills Borrelia. And so she started experimenting, and it was really frustrating, because the Borrelia just sucked the virus into its DNA. It's
Uh-huh.
really good at absorbing plasmids,
Yeah.
and it does that from E. coli. That's why it's immune to a lot of stuff now, it seems like. Anyway, and she inoculated 10 mice with Lyme and had 10 blanks, and 100% by viral shedding from the inoculated mice, she could tell who was positive. So
Okay.
then she tried 100 mice and tell what was positive and what was negative. Then they tried people, and it's a 100% accurate test with
Wow.
viral shedding. And the test, and if you Google red labs, you get dogs. So you
Okay.
do Google red laboratory,
Hmm.
and did you find it, Nicole? Are you,
Um, I haven't looked it up. I will look right now.
Yeah, it's like and there's a whole criteria. They assessed different testing. Um,
Okay. Yeah.
and Martha presented this at a viral conference that I happened to be at. And I went nuts, because it's like, oh my gosh, this is like the answer to such a big problem that we have, which is our diagnostic skills in this area are really terrible. And so we finally have a good diagnostic criteria. I know Dr. Ross has been looking at RAD labs, and he's not sure of its efficacy yet.
Yeah.
I think Ross's, whole profile and his
Mhm.
approach. Anyway, and but once we get a Borrelia,
Mhm.
I can identify it. The only other tests for Babesia and Bartonella, the RED laboratory, Dr. Clokey said we need to go through IGeneX for Babesia and Bartonella
Mhm.
to identify them.
Mhm.
I use another lab that's covered by insurance called MDL, Medical Diagnostics Labs,
Yeah.
and that it's just an infectious disease test, so I can do Rickettsia and I can do Borrelia, Babesia, all the different Bartonellas, all the different Babesias,
Right.
all the virus CMV,
Mm.
everything
Mm.
that you could possibly want to
Yeah.
check
Yeah.
from the from Egypt, the rivers and the Nile. Anyway, so that's a fair test,
Uh-huh.
but it's an antibody test. And so if somebody's, really wiped out and they're not making antibodies, you'll get a negative, and then you're still shooting in the dark, which we did for years with
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
IgM tests.
Mhm.
We're still using that. That's standard of care.
Mhm.
And insurance companies don't want to change. The cost of the test is around $445.
Okay.
And
Mhm.
people spring for it because they just want to know.
Yeah.
I had a rheumatoid arthritis patient, um, frozen from head to toe. He could barely move. And he tested positive for Borrelia, Babesia, and Bartonella. And in his gut, he had Proteus. He was also diagnosed with Crohn's disease. And so we use phage for the Proteus and then C-Cure to heal the gut lining. And Tractalotus,
Uh,
Tractalotus.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, what a great herb.
Yeah.
So 100% cure with Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis versus Yanpiling, which is an Tractalotus or
Mhm.
Bijou formula.
Mhm.
So I used that too with him.
Yeah.
And then we treated him with the herbal formulas from John Hopkins.
Mhm.
That because I'm so excited about the work that happened
Mhm.
after the Cohen grant to the John Hopkins. You know about that, right? Have
I
you
don't know.
Mhm.
you haven't talked about it? Okay, in 2016,
Yeah.
Stephen Cohen is a um, billionaire from Connecticut.
Okay.
Mhm.
His wife got psychosis, I believe.
Mhm.
She was electroshocked and drugged.
Mhm.
It didn't work.
Mhm.
And they're from Connecticut. So it's like
Yeah. Right.
finally somebody checked her for Lyme and they
Uh-huh.
treated the Lyme and her psychosis. Lo and behold, her psychosis went away. I guess 60% of the people in mental health institutions are
Mhm.
positive for Lyme
Oh man,
and
that's
co-infections. Anyway, so he gave $60 million to John Hopkins and to Mount Sinai, to several different research universities. And so this is only to be used for Lyme disease evaluation. And
okay.
that's where we got the infectious disease treatment
Mm-hmm.
for Lyme that's coming out of right now,
Mm-hmm.
which you've probably seen. Have you seen that?
I have not. No.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So in I think it was 2020, I ran across herbal treatments for Lyme disease in NIH.
Okay.
And they said, antibiotics didn't really work past the acute stage, which we
Right.
Mhm.
didn't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, but the stationary stage and the NCYST and the other stages were killed 100% by Cryptolepis.
Wow.
And they did the same treatment that John Whitaker developed. She
Mm-hmm.
got run out of town by the CDC and FDA, and
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
she moved to Brazil, and which
So
was a lot.
cryptolepis for Lyme disease or cryptolepis for Lyme disease?
100%. Yeah, for Lyme disease, but it also works for Babesia, and
Yeah.
it's pretty good for Bartonella too.
Okay.
Wow.
But they did Lyme first. They took several years doing Lyme, and they were using the dark field microscopy, and
Uh-huh.
it's in vitro testing. So I started using Cryptolepis with my patients that had we're still having seizures and stuff after trying antibiotics and trying cat's claw and trying all kinds of different stuff.
Right.
Basically, we've been experimenting for years because we
Right.
didn't have data.
Yeah.
And I taught a bunch of ethics classes on that
Mhm.
because the ethical consideration of blocking Lyme research
Yeah.
is staggering.
Hmm.
This is where medicine has really been overcome by financial gain,
Right.
which is unethical, terrible,
I
terrible.
agree.
Hmm.
I agree.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so I taught a bunch of classes on infectious disease treatments and ethics, which was well received. Anyway,
I'm
on
sure it was.
another podcast group that I've worked with.
Nice.
Hmm.
So almost as good. So if you Google, let's see, Lyme disease and herbal therapy research now, and of course they found Artemisia and Cryptolepis and a few other things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what I used with this gentleman. We put him on milk thistle, and methotrexate didn't hurt him, but it didn't fix his, which is a TNF alpha inhibitor, which cat's claw is a TNF alpha and interleukin 6, and have cytokine downregulation. They actually in vitro kill Lyme. They seem to work in vivo. I feel like we're still experimenting with it. And we don't have really good, besides Martha's test, the RED laboratories that's based in Nevada, but her actual testing site's in Belgium. So it's kind of a difficult translation because you have to do euros to pay for it. And not everybody has those resources.
Right.
So sometimes our diagnostic criteria is, which is good. That's what we've done for years is, diagnostic clinical evaluation.
Yes.
So Bartonella, I think walnut. I have the different things that were found in the studies. Frontiers of Medicine did the Babesia one, and another group published the Bartonella one. So they're amazing. And then co-infections I usually use, like Epstein-Barr and Mycoplasma and chlamydia pneumonia, usually respond really well to olive leaf. So I use olive leaf a lot of times for that because it's so benign and it protects the heart, and the flavonoids in it are really nice anti-inflammatory. And so, and then there's the brain stuff.
The what?
The brains get injured by
Right.
this infection.
Yes.
And dang, that's, so people need to take the things that reduce the brain injury, the purple,
Right.
stuff like blueberries, and 30% cognitive increase, and also lion's mane, and stimulate BDNF. And they have to exercise. They don't get better. It seems like if they don't exercise, and exercise means walking, probably not running because they'll hurt themselves.
Yes.
No bungee jumping, no stupid exercise.
Right.
Although I really like doing like things where you jump, but I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
Not worth it because it's harder to heal if you've had Lyme and the co-infections. And yoga, stretching in the sauna, and balance. You have to keep the cerebellum going because it gets damaged, and then you can't stand up anymore. And then acupuncture for so all the acupuncture points for balance that are really amazing.
Yes.
So
Satya, in regards to, helping people overcome Lyme and co-infections, I find, sometimes when, people also have systemic parasitic infections. And
always fun.
And these Lyme pathogens and the co-infections, these parasites can be a host for them too. And I find that if I have a challenge with anything, it seems like it's taking that extra time to help eradicate these systemic parasites. They can get into the brain, they can get into.
Nobody checks for them.
I know.
Like I have so much trouble referring to infectious disease when, like, I
Yeah.
had a woman who was in the Nile. She got bitten by something and something went in her eye,
Yeah.
and she had like parasites. She had river blindness, and
Yeah.
oh my gosh! And nobody here, I mean, everybody here said that she she couldn't have parasites because we don't
Hmm.
have them in the United States.
Right.
But she got sick, and in Egypt,
Mhm.
and I gave her like albendazole and ivermectin, which is, because there's all
Mhm.
the controversy about that. And it's such
Sure.
a great drug for so many things. And
Yeah.
you don't want to use it too much because it has some neurological side effects.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I'm respectful of that. Albendazole, the side effect of seizures. But
Yeah.
I only give seizures to people that already had seizures. And
Uh,
one person had a tendency towards seizures, and we just gave her magnesium and fish oil.
Mhm.
And she started having twitches when she took albendazole, and it countered the side effects. But it's a
yeah.
relatively safe medication.
Right.
It's now $1,500 in the United States since we no longer have parasites here. Ha
Right.
ha ha.
Right.
Anyway, and so it has to be compounded, and there aren't very many pharmacies that have the compounded albendazole.
Okay.
Mhm.
There's fenbendazole, and I don't know enough about it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I have a lot of my cancer patients are using
Yep.
it,
Hmm.
and it works, but I, don't recommend it
Yeah.
because I don't know enough to
Mhm.
that it's safe since it's
Right. Right.
anti-parasitic for animals.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm a bit conservative. So I did a whole essay on different aspects of infectious disease. I went through Dr. Chen's literature.
Okay.
John
Mhm.
Chen,
Yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
love his work.
I
You
love
know,
John Penn. Yeah.
and what herbs work. And I talked to
Hmm.
Bob Floss,
Hmm.
and he said, Satya, don't use Chinese herbs for parasites, use the drugs.
Yeah.
Because you have to use such high doses of the Chinese herb that
Mhm.
they damage people.
Yeah.
And something like albendazole is safe, relatively.
Mhm.
And so he said, don't use walnut. You have to use like mega doses, and it will make you really sick
For
and
sure.
damage your liver and stuff.
Yeah.
So I kind of stopped doing that. Although walnut's good for Bartonella.
Mhm.
Okay.
So green, that was one of the things we used with
Yeah.
my gentleman who had rheumatoid arthritis. He's a year out, and he had a negative RED laboratories test. So his
Mhm.
Borrelia is gone with cryptolepis and cat's claw, and let's see, Japanese knotweed.
Okay.
And Bartonella is gone, but he still was positive for Babesia on an
Okay.
IGeneX
Okay.
immunoblot.
Hmm.
So we're continuing Artemisia, and we thought we were done because he has like one spot left on his thumb, and he's a pilot, so he said it was
Mhm.
Well,
because of his piloting. When
yeah.
that's, I guess, a hard maneuver in an airplane. I didn't
Yeah.
know.
Hmm.
Uh,
So he's got some numbness in the thumb.
no, he had pain
Oh,
in his
pain. Okay.
knuckle.
Okay.
And
Okay.
Sadia, I was one of those people with parasitic infection. And what I ran into, and I don't know if this is the experience you have, accessing these antiparasitics became very difficult. And the doctors that I worked with, they had limits on what they could get. One of the things I needed was proxyquantel, and we had to go through the CDC, get pre-approval for one dose, because in theory, one dose is enough to treat an infection. And we couldn't get any more after
it's
that.
not true necessarily.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll send people to Mexico sometimes. And
Hmm.
in Mexico, legally, they need a prescription from a
Hmm.
doctor. So when I went down there, I tried to just buy some, and they gave me like one pill because I
Yeah.
heard you can just buy it over the counter there, and it
Right.
wasn't usually true. So it's sunny today in Oregon. It's crazy.
It
It's
is.
beautiful.
Yeah, it's
It is
beautiful.
today.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I do the GI testing I do includes parasitology.
Hmm.
The best parasitology lab, I think, is diagnostics in, I believe they're in the Renton, Seattle area.
Hmm.
And that lab was started by a gastroenterologist pathologist, Dr. Rami from
Hmm.
India. And I used his lab first. And when I first started testing GI stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and he would call me up when someone had a parasite, and he said, "I want to make sure that you're treating this properly." I
Yeah,
went, "Oh my gosh, I never had any mentorship."
that's great.
I
Yeah.
know he was so great parasitology. And then as soon as I saw one, I'd call him and I'd say, "Oh,
Yeah.
this person has like roundworms and tapeworms."
Yeah.
Satya, you must not do the herbs with these because it will drive it into the liver or to the lung or into the brain, and this causes many problems. And he
Mm-hmm.
would go on and on. I go, "Okay, I'll just drugs." And he said, "And you should do IgG first,
Okay.
because if it has gone out of the intestines, then it could already be in one of those organs, and this is going to be a problem for the poor patient, and you don't want a rupture of a parasite in the brain, because somebody that we know had that happen
Oh, okay.
in politics, I think.
Oh, okay. Mhm.
Anyway, and everybody thinks he's crazy, which,
I shouldn't laugh.
yeah, we shouldn't laugh. We're all crazy.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
anyway, so he coached me through Trichinella tenuisolium,
Hmm.
uh, which is tapeworms and roundworms,
Hmm.
and how much albendazole to use.
Right.
I've used albendazole and Alinea.
Hmm.
Alinea is like really like in the thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Yes.
And there's one pharmacy here in town that has the substrate
Hmm.
in, and they will make it up for me, and it's about $60
Yeah,
to
that's great.
give somebody,
Hmm.
several weeks worth. With tapeworm, I'll do a 10-day stint of 200 twice a day, and then wait 30 days and do it again, 60 days, 90 days, do two,
Hmm.
two a day, and then 120 days, until to make sure you catch all the little babies, because there's millions of babies
Right.
come out. So they're
Do you
very,
find that these kinds of infections are more common than what we're being told through, media sources and whatnot?
I just don't think we're testing.
Hmm.
I mean, when I report a tick to the local health department, a tick bite, they have a very narrow criteria of acceptance of Lyme disease,
Hmm.
and so we don't get all the data. I don't think. There was a tick hatching in Hillsboro, and one of my patient's grandsons was on the playground, and in this, in an elementary school, and he got a tick bite, and some other kids got tick bites too. And I was sure he had Lyme. He got joint pain and belly aches. He stopped eating. He just stopped. A 10-year-old that doesn't move anymore is of
Hmm.
concern. He wouldn't get out of bed. And I was sure he had Lyme.
Hmm.
And grandma saved the tick.
Oh, that was
And
great.
the tick came back, which is only like $100 to check the tick for all the infections. The
Mhm.
tick came back with rickettsia, which
Ooh.
is, yeah, which is deadly. It's fatal
Mhm.
in a fairly big, significant amount of the cases. And I reported it, and she said, "Well, since it wasn't the kid that we tested, it was the tick that we tested.
Right.
It didn't count as
Mhm.
potential infectious disease reporting material."
Mhm.
And I was like, "Well, huh."
Yeah.
But no
Yeah.
one's checking. No one's checking the ticks in Oregon,
Mhm.
Mm.
unless somebody comes into me with a tick in a little plastic baggie, and they're still walking around.
Yeah.
Right.
They're creepy. They live for 560 days or something
Wow.
Mhm.
without any food or water or anything. They're
Yeah.
resilient, and now their babies are born with infections. If you get the relapsing fever, which
Right.
is
Mhm.
what everybody's coming back with
Mhm.
now,
Mhm.
which is a Borrelia,
Mhm.
kind of like Miyamoto, but
Mhm.
Trichiae, and there's a whole bunch of different relapsing fevers that
Mhm.
give people hot flashes. They don't necessarily have to give people fevers, but
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
still test positive for relapsing fever.
Mm.
So I decided, okay, I'm going to do a stint of cryptolepis, and it doesn't work unless you really dose it high to treat relapsing fever.
Okay.
So that's Dr. Boriscano did a presentation for IGenics,
Mhm.
a YouTube that was nice about relapsing fever, but his treatment was the CDC treatment, which is doxycycline, and I've tried that and it didn't work for my patients. But
Mhm.
then I have funny patients too. So
Mhm.
they don't fit in very many boxes at all.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. Sophia,
So
what do you do for rickettsia? How do you treat that with like
I
chronic?
gave him doxycycline.
Okay.
Oh.
So I called Dr. Yarnell. Do you know Eric Yarnell?
No.
He teaches infectious disease and oh, he's just a wonderful soul. I
Nice.
called him and looked at his research,
Hmm.
which is what they got the research that they use at, they got it from Dr. Yarnell and Dr. Zhang
Hmm.
on what to test Lyme at John Hopkins
Hmm.
for, like what herbs would work.
Hmm.
And Dr. Yarnell said, you know, walnut might work, but we just don't have any data on it.
Yeah.
And so he would go with doxycycline. So that's what I
Yeah.
did. And the kid came out of it in 4 or 5 days. He was,
Awesome.
they wished that he was quiet again.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, which is a good thing.
That is a good thing for
It's,
sure.
will you go sit on your bed and be quiet for a little while? Isn't that when you give them an iPad or something? Well, it didn't work because
Oh no.
he was back, you know, like before.
Nice. Good deal. What projects are you working on right now?
Oh,
You always
okay. So
seem to be
we're
working
doing
on something.
a series of TED Talks
Hmm.
on with Shatari. And
Okay.
I just turned 70, so I'm retiring and just want to do like stuff like the TED Talks and
Yeah.
teaching.
Yeah.
And the last one I did was on miracles, and that was in Paris, and that was really fun. It
Nice.
was it was well received. Nobody threw tomatoes or duck fat or anything. Anyway, or
Wish I could tell
escargot.
you a story about a tomato, but I'll save that for another time.
Oh.
So I got Shigella. So
Oh,
we went to Paris.
yeah.
And then we went down and snorkeled the island of Corsica. I
Yeah.
highly recommend it, but have phage available when you get back.
Okay.
And I was like, you know, something's going on. And so I did a GI test, and sure enough, I had like an infection. And I was getting kind of colitis symptoms. And I took phage. So you take some baking soda to reduce your stomach acid because acid will kill the virus.
Mm,
And
Mhm.
it comes in these little tiny bottles, and I do half a bottle twice a day.
yeah.
And by the end of the fifth day, my intestinal uh, disruption was better. It's really hard to work when you have intestinal stuff.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway,
Mhm.
so I was
Yeah.
back to sitting in one place for a while. Well,
Mhm.
I don't do that much, but anyway.
You worked with phages for a while, I remember.
Yeah. My molecular biology was very famous for gene mapping the first virus, the first people in Tbilisi, Georgia, south between Turkey and Russia, because Stalin paid them to make phage for his armies because he couldn't afford penicillin. Because everybody switched. The phage was discovered at the Pasteur Institute in 1915.
Okay.
And we used it, but we weren't really good at growing viruses
Hmm.
until we're better now.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And so she worked with the people in Tbilisi that are the experts in the world because of Stalin giving them money to grow phages for his soldiers. Because
Nice.
strep is gone with phage and
Yeah.
staph and
Yeah.
Shigella, Salmonella,
Mhm.
Yes.
just not the spirochetes.
No, they don't have a phage for the or a phage for the spirochetes yet.
You know, there's a group that's trying to use phage, and they use phage plus herbs, and I think it's the herbs that work. I don't think Martha said that the phage doesn't kill Borrelia.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
yeah, Dr. Clokey.
I've seen some companies out there in my exploration of phage
Oh yeah,
where,
yeah.
you can send, like, maybe send some blood in or some saliva or something like that, and they find out, what toxin or what pathogen that you carry, and then they create a phage associated with your microbiome. Have you heard things like
Yeah,
that?
there are companies in Europe that do that. So
Okay.
Dr. Floki has started phage development labs all over, like in China, in Kenya, Brazil, like all over the world. We just don't do it here
Yeah,
because it's cheap and you can't patent it.
right. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no financial gain.
Right.
There is clinical gain for the patients because they don't have to take Cipro or whatever.
Right.
Um, so, um, so probably you're getting the folks in uh, Tbilisi, which I trust their phage the best.
Hmm.
There was phage from Ukraine that was online, and they
Hmm.
had good phage, but it's not so available now.
Okay.
And then in Russia, there was also phage. And I think the Germans had some too that was online. And the only one that I know of that I trust is from Tbilisi, which has the word Eliava, which is the university that Stalin gave money to
Okay.
develop phage. Eliava phage, I
Okay.
think, is the best. So if you have a staph infection or something,
Yeah.
I was rock climbing, pretending I was Superwoman, and I started having hip pain, and and then I got a fever, and I was like, it was kind of scary, and I thought, I've got something, and I went into the ER, and he said, well, I think you have osteomyelitis in your hip,
Hmm.
and I said, well, what organism is it? And he said, well, it's usually staph, and it's just from like doing overextending yourself. Have you been overextending yourself lately? And I said, who, me? Well, yeah. Anyway, and he said, well, we need to keep you in the hospital and do IV antibiotics.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, which antibiotics? And he said, well, we'd probably do a cephalexin and Cipro. And I said, well, I'm not willing to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to go home. I have phage. I have done phage research. And he looked really pale and
Uh,
said, you don't have 24 hours, Satya. You
uh,
have to do this like right now. And I said, okay, I'll go do it. He said, and I said, if it doesn't work, I'll know and I'll come right back because I've had staph infections occasionally on my skin because I'm so like atopic.
yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's just gone immediately with
Uh,
phage.
Mm-hmm.
And and he was like, is there anything I can say? I said, oh, you've helped me a lot. Thank you so much. And then I went home and used phage, and by the next morning it was gone. My fever and my hip pain, I could walk again.
Wow.
And it was like a phenomenon. I was like, wow, this really worked. I'm so happy. It worked so well for the Shigella.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, and so he called me. When has an ER doc ever called you the next day? He called me to see if I was still alive.
when you have a fever and a staph infection internally, they're going to call you
I could
probably.
Yeah.
see, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, he was like, huh,
Yeah. Totally. That's awesome.
maybe I widened his box a little bit or squashed his box.
Hmm.
That
Yeah.
would be okay. That'd be,
Yeah.
ooh, I'm a box squasher. Ooh, I like it.
Satya, do you have stories of, some case studies or some patients where you um, didn't think that there was any help, and you were able to, figure out what was going on and, help them get their health back? Like some miraculous story?
So many stories.
So many. I remember hearing a lot.
Yeah, I had a lupus patient
Hmm.
that she was like it was really scary because she had kidney involvement
Hmm.
and she was from Romania.
Hmm.
And Romania has a different kind of Borrelia. It
Hmm.
has the Guaranii
Hmm.
and what's the other one? Afzelii. Who
Yeah.
named these things? Anyway, so but I didn't know that at the time. She tested positive on the Q-rib test, which was taken off the market by the FDA.
Mhm.
That was Joanne Whitaker's test, but she was a high positive.
Mhm.
And so all I had back then was Cemento. But we did acupuncture because she had like the lupus flush and she's hot flashing and she's
Yeah.
so like PMSy. It was dangerous being
Mm.
around her. And she was just miserable, and she'd have a flare after every ovulation. She was just like liver qi constraint in Chinese medicine, like she had estrogen dominance.
Mhm.
And so I gave her cat's claw. And you start with 1 drop a day and do that for 3 days. And then you do one in the morning and one at night for 3 days. And you have to ramp up slowly because it causes intense Herx reactions.
Yeah.
And I used enzymes back then. That's what I used for biofilm.
Mhm.
And that's really good for inflammation. And they're pretty gentle.
Yeah.
And they break the biofilm nicely. So I wait till they're up to about 5 drops a day to start the enzymes because I don't want to break the biofilm until the Cemento has stimulated the natural killer cells to engage with the Borrelia,
Nice.
which is what it does partly, and then it does some cytokine stuff. It reduces all the cytokines that cause rheumatoid arthritis,
Wow.
TNF alpha, interleukin 6. Like
Right.
it's a cool herb.
Yeah.
Some people can't tolerate it. So I gave her Xiaoyuan,
Uh-huh.
Bullworm formula, which lowers estrogen and helps that balance. And we did acupuncture. She was terrified. When she came in, she would cry every visit, how she was dying. And the doctor at Kaiser told her she'd never get to have a relationship or any children.
Yeah.
Or, like she's 22 and she should just let go of those dreams
Mhm.
and expect to die of kidney failure, which is a pretty awful way to go. And she completely recovered. It took about 9 months, and we treated, counseled. She continued the cat's claw, and she started a business that is amazing. And I just saw her name on Facebook, and I was like, oh, I tried to reach out to her, but she's so busy.
Yeah.
She's got grandchildren.
Oh, cool.
She travels the world. She's like a superstar. And anyway, so she comes to mind.
Okay.
I hadn't really seen cat's claw
Yeah.
do so much. I had a Crohn's patient
Mhm.
that cat's claw fixed her, and that was before I was using cat's claw. Like I didn't know that it was good for Lyme,
Yeah.
but it healed her.
Her
And
Crohn.
so
Yeah.
that was a pretty cool one. That was before I knew Lyme disease existed, but I wasn't cognizant of it in my patients.
Mm-hmm.
Um, hmm.
Satya, you mentioned that sleep is a big problem with a lot of your Lyme
Oh
patients.
gosh, yeah.
What do you do to help people get
Oh,
better? What
huh.
what do you find helpful?
It's different for everybody.
Yeah.
One of the primary things is balancing blood sugar.
Okay.
Because if like there's two types of insomnia.
Mm-hmm.
There's the high cortisol insomnia where you can't fall asleep. That's
Yes.
the one I have.
Yeah.
I don't know why. And then my brain doesn't shut off, so I read stupid novels at
Yeah.
bedtime. And then there's the middle of the night one, which is like menopause and deficient cortisol, because
Yeah.
your blood sugar goes down and then you get a cortisol surge. But if you don't have enough cortisol, you make norepinephrine and epinephrine.
Uh-huh.
And so you get this like in the middle of the night and you can't go back to sleep. I have both of those.
Can you associate elevated histamine levels with um,
Yeah.
sleep sometimes?
And that's related to low cortisol.
Okay.
So, cortisol reduces histamine production. So
Okay.
you give somebody prednisone and they do go crazy a little bit because of the cortisol stimulation, but their
Sure.
histamines go down.
Yes.
So there's all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Like there's ashwagandha and there's theanine, and those are two of Marty Ross's favorites.
Mm-hmm.
And I've tried those.
Mm-hmm.
What works best for me is not eating junk food before bed,
Yeah, no kidding.
because that causes my blood sugar to go up,
For sure.
and I don't fall asleep easily, and then my blood sugar crashes and I wake up in the middle of the night. And MCT oil, I think, is really good before bed.
Okay.
And if you want to, MCT and glycine, I learned that from, Dave Asbury. He loves coffee.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
The bulletproof
And
guy.
yeah, the
Yep.
bulletproof guy.
Yeah.
And so I have a feeling that maybe we shouldn't have as much coffee in the morning as some of us like.
Right.
I forgot to drink my coffee. Anyway, and glycine helps stabilize that. So you got to kind of figure out why.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to a patient who has dystonia last night before bed, and I worried about her for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't sleep well. So I track sleep through my watch.
Mm-hmm.
You can do it through an Aura ring. There's a couple different ways of tracking it. And I watch deep sleep. If I get deep sleep, my brain functions so much better.
Yeah.
And so on my phone, I'll show you my sleep. Here it is. So I don't know, can you see it?
I can.
Is that too much glare?
Yep.
Oh, that's good. Nice.
Okay, I got 8 hours.
That's
But
amazing.
I know that's pretty good. You think, oh, that's okay. But my deep sleep was like 11 minutes.
Oh, okay.
And deep sleep is when you get the gunk out of your brain. It takes the toxic stuff of metabolism out of your brain. And so when I look down here on the very bottom is deep sleep.
Okay.
And if I get more than 45 minutes, I'm much better. I have more energy. I woke up feeling pretty good. Yesterday I went mushroom hunting, and usually I sleep after that. So it was like the nighttime. If Daniel talks to me about finances before bed, I don't get deep sleep. And so he's terrified of doing that with me because I'm such a terror if I don't sleep.
Yeah. What role do toxins play with things like this, like Lyme or any other?
Yeah. Well, a chronic infection lowers your cortisol and produces, the biotoxins. And so Neil Nathan, Neil Nathan, you should have him on. He's so wonderful.
Yeah, good idea. Yeah.
I love him. And he says, you got to deal with the toxins and deal with those first. And so, I have a whole detox protocol I do with people, but the best thing is really good food.
Yes, I agree.
So I love Furman's Eat to Live book.
Okay.
Which is like eating lots of fresh fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds and then and I also and I think I do better with meat because it stabilizes my blood sugar.
Yeah.
But maybe I'd be better with just vegetarian. So I've been toying with the idea of doing vegan. Everybody's different. I tolerate meat. Some of us don't do well with meat because of alpha gal, of red meat.
Right.
And then if I don't know, are you familiar with Michael Greger? He's a vegan doctor who does lots of research, and he's very convincing that none of us should eat meat.
Okay.
But I think I do better with meat. But meat will raise your cholesterol, but the cholesterol that's not so good for us is apolipoprotein B is more associated with arterial plaquing. So if that's high, I'll do a coronary calcium scan on somebody and check and see what's good. And if it's up, mine was 0, which is kind of amazing because I tend to have higher cholesterol and I have high Lp(a). What brings the coronary calcium down, according to Harvard, is lumbrokinase.
Nice, that makes sense.
Which is D-Long, which is earthworm enzymes. And
Right.
that's the strongest cyst buster.
Yes.
So
Right.
there's lumbar kinase is really strong. So I wait till somebody's through their
Mhm.
treatments for a while, and then I might add lumbar kinase. And if they get sick, then I know we're not done.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it took 18 months to get better.
Yeah.
If you get bit in your 20s and you start treating it in your 40s, you usually have a substantial
For sure. Oh yeah.
group of,
With me.
well, spirochetes. So how long was it before you got symptoms? Did
Oh,
you get,
I started my symptoms, they started small and they just kind of escalated over time. But I think they started when I was in my, probably 34, 35. And, they were just kind of like food sensitivities, allergies,
uh,
gluten sensitivity. And then I would get dizziness and vertigo and intermittent aches and pains. And then,
yeah, did I know this?
no, you didn't
I
know
didn't
any
know
of my
that
stuff.
this was
Yeah.
going on for you.
Yeah. And then, in my, I was around 44 or something. No, I was 45.
Ah,
That's when I was taken down. Like that's when I
ah,
was hospitalized with four
interesting.
bowel obstructions. And
That's
it
traumatic.
was it was traumatic. And the hospital experience, I had to advocate for myself. They wouldn't let me bring in an acupuncturist, so I had my wife bring in my acupuncture needles. And I'm the one who brought my bowel sounds back from giving
Yeah,
myself
stomach
acupuncture.
36
Yeah.
is so good
Right.
for impaction.
Yes.
Um, that's those two times are drops in testosterone. Mid
Okay.
30s, mid 40s, and then 60 is
Okay.
the next one. And I see with hormone changes, if somebody's got something lurking,
Yes.
the Borrelia, whatever you've got, kind of comes out if it's being kept at bay because our immune system stops working as well.
Right.
Adrenal function changes. What about you, Nicole? When did you?
Very similar to Patrick. It seems like for me, my mid to late 30s, right after my second child, I start having all kinds of
Yeah,
really
childbirth
weird
is hard on us.
symptoms. Yeah.
You don't sleep, and the
No.
hormone changes are wacky. And
Yep.
Mhm.
yeah, that's when I got it when I was 40, and I had I two babies in succession, and it was
Hmm.
the
Wow.
Lyme just thought it could do whatever it wanted.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hmm. Definitely.
Trauma will do that.
Or yeah, car accidents or
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What triggered mine was a snowboarding accident. I broke a rib and sprained my ankle. Um,
oh,
it was either that or run over my son. So I chose to break
uh,
a rib and sprain my ankle. And
sacrifice yourself.
yeah, and then after that, I thought it was better. And I did a little bit of yoga one day. And the next day after that, I had bowel obstruction, and where it felt like somebody was pouring hot lava into my abdomen. And I
Hmm.
swore it was from the backward bend from
Mhm.
doing sun salutations. And and so lo and behold, that's why it happened, because anytime I did a backward bend, it would exacerbate abdominal symptoms.
It's interesting, the musculoskeletal piece with the
Yeah,
gut, with the
yeah,
brain, and
yeah,
Mhm.
gosh,
yeah,
amazing.
yeah, it is. Well, Satya, I think we're running out of time here. We've covered a lot of great information from you, and I could talk with you all day, about
I know this is fun.
fun stuff. Yes. Is there anything that you would like to share with our audience?
Well, there's one more thing. The lumbar kinase is the top cyst
Okay.
buster, and it
Hmm.
takes off arteriosclerotic plaquing. And
Nice.
natto is next.
Mhm.
And then the cinnamon combination that everybody's using is good. And then I enzymes with the proteases. Oh, let's see, what's the name of them? And trim, chymotrypsin, trypsin, and trypsin.
Mhm.
Okay.
Well, they're very gentle in opening cysts, so that's something I would use.
Yeah.
And then Berber panella is really good for Herxheimer reactions. That
Okay.
seems to really help sometimes.
Mhm.
And I
Okay.
usually use cemento as my cat's claw. That's been my favorite.
Nice.
I don't know how clean it is. We
Yeah.
haven't evaluated it yet.
Mhm.
Okay.
So we have more questions than
Yeah.
answers.
Oh, for sure. Have you done any case studies where you've done some imaging on carotid artery before and after using something like lumbrokinase?
There are, and that's that Harvard did that.
Okay.
And so, yeah, the NIH has it in
Databases.
there.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Google D-lung or I think it's under lumbrokinase.
What
And
what dose do you like to use for lumbrokinase for something like that?
well, whatever you can do without getting bruising.
Okay. That
So
makes
about 100 milligrams was too much for me, and that's what was in my lumbrokinase.
yeah.
So I do half of a pill. I just open the capsule,
Yeah.
and I don't do it when I'm doing mushroom hunting or hardcore stuff because I'll come up with bruises a little bit.
Okay.
But my genetically, I'm a good clotter, and
Nice.
so because my LP little a is high,
Yeah.
and I think there's a correlation with getting Lyme symptoms and having that, like the blood stagnation, the clotting situation a little bit, which is kind of interesting. I haven't seen anybody. I think Diane Connolly. No, was it? Who was it? Was it East Coast doctor? She's kind of undercover a little bit. And she did a bunch of stuff with blood clotting and peony.
Okay, right.
Being helpful for that.
Nice. I love
So
that.
I think that's important for the biofilm is to reduce the clotting factors. So
in regards to the blood vessels breaking with something like lumbrokinase, do you think that there are little microcysts on the vascular tissue that when they break, it could cause bleeding or when they open up?
necessarily, usually when I find them, they're on places where I've been holding a mushroom basket that's about 40 pounds on my arm.
Yeah.
So it's right where those blood vessels are a bit more friable, right? I'm more susceptible to vascular instability. So
Interesting.
So then I tried pycnogenol to increase the strength of them, and that helped, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I'm interested in that chemical group.
What chemical is that?
Pycnogenol, like the grapeseed extract.
Right.
The other thing that I do is if somebody comes in with a diagnosis, okay, for instance, I have a patient with squamous cell carcinoma. And so tracking back to the on switch genetically of squamous carcinoma of the throat, bad one, right? The biologics block the on switch, the proliferative switch. We can't afford the biologics. They're $20,000 to $40,000 a month. That's why our insurance is like off the charts. And in China, they don't use the biologics. They use herbs. And so they've studied what herbs block the JAK pathway, which is a kinase pathway that causes squamous cell to grow. So you can use herbs to block the inflammatory pathways. We all have like I had a melanoma, so that's triggered by the RAS pathway. Hibiscus and limonene block it. And knock on wood, I haven't had any recurrence for 11 years. So you can do herbs through cell signaling pathway, and we could talk about that sometime if you're interested. It's one of my current passions.
Nice.
Figuring that out.
Okay.
That's a good one.
Great.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
thank you. This was a great pleasure.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking me, Patrick. I'm impressed with your questions and hopefully did a good job for you.
Oh, it's been an honor, and it always has. And I hope this is the first one of many more.
All right. Looking forward to it.
Good deal.
All right. You two take care, all right?
You too. Thank you for coming.
All right.
All right. Take care, Satya.
Thanks.